Hey guys, what's going on? In part one, we went ahead and modeled a storage shelf. And so naturally, we need something to put on that shelf. So we're going to go ahead and model a tote. So totes are really easy to make. They're rectangles. The important part is getting the scaling right. So we're going to go ahead and get this cube to scale. So we know that the model that I'm using is going to be 15 inches tall. It's going to be 29 inches in length and 20 inches in depth. This is a fairly large tote. It's 100 liters. It's a tough tote. So now we can go ahead and get rid of the face up top. And we have the bottom portion of it. We're going to go ahead and select these long faces here, long edges rather, and we're going to scale them in just a tiny bit. Now we're going to select all these edges and we're going to round them over. Now we have the shape of our tote. Now the next step here is to go ahead and solidify this. Use an even thickness, and we're going to do about half an inch, so 0.5. So it's a pretty thick tote. We're going to go ahead and apply that. So the totes I'm using in particular have some details on the front and sides. So we're going to go ahead and create those in the form of stencils. And I love making these little stencils and using them to cut out different shapes. So I'll show you how to do that real quick. You basically just make whatever shape fits the stencil you're trying to make. I'm trying to make a V, so I'll just make a little rectangle here, and I'll scale the top along the y-axis. And now, as you can see, we have this clipping in about halfway into this bit. So we're going to round over these edges here by selecting them and Control B. And now you can see something weird's happening here. It's not really doing what we want it to. So an easy way to fix that is to hit Control A and click all transforms. So now when we go back and try and bevel, it'll bevel it appropriately. Shade that smooth. And now what we're going to do is we're going to create a Boolean modifier. We're going to select that stencil we just made. Now we have the front portion cut out. You can edit that if you want. You can move it forward, you can move it back, make it a little shallower of a cut. I think that looks pretty good. And because it's halfway, when I do it on the other side, I don't have to do any guesswork. So I'm going to go ahead and rotate that 180 degrees. And because the center point's here, it just worked out like that. It wasn't planned. We don't have to do no work, no lineup, no nothing. Okay, so we have the ends done. What I want to do now is I want to rotate this 180 degrees. I want to select this and I want to make it a little more aggressive because now we're going to do the sides. So we're going to do 90 degrees, and it's very nice that it put it right in the center for us again. But in this instance, we're going to have 3 of these in a line. So we're going to go ahead and create a array modifier, set the count to 3, and we're just going to eyeball this. That looks pretty good to me. We're going to apply that, and we're going to add another Boolean. Make sure we don't have anything weird. And the reason why we have some weird things going on here is this is actually tapered. So what we want to do is we want to go ahead and rotate this. And now you can see we have the indent properly. And I actually think for this case, it's a little too aggressive. So we're going to scale it 0.5. 0.5. Now, if you didn't already apply your array modifier, you wouldn't have had to do that. See, that looks much better, much less aggressive. So we're going to go ahead and apply that. We're going to rotate this 180 degrees. And unfortunately, we didn't apply to origin. All right, one more Boolean here. And we want to double check, make sure. We could have solved a lot of problems by just cutting this in half at the get-go and using a mirror modifier, but that's okay. You learn as you go. So we're going to select all these inside edges because now you got to realize we need a lid. So we're going to select all the edges on the inside. We're going to hit F to fill. We're going to separate by selection, and we're going to make sure to set the origin to geometry. So going into the top down, we can scale this until it just covers everything we want. We can extrude this down, and I'm thinking I'm going to extrude it probably about an inch. We'll do -1. Okay, so now this is just a basic lid. So let's give it some details. We're going to hit I to inset, and then we're going to extrude it downwards just a little bit, just to give it a little bit of dimension. This is a scale tote. We're missing a couple handles. So on this tote in particular, around these front faces here, there's a protrusion that acts as sort of a handle. So we're gonna extrude -1. Extrude -1. And because these kind of go into the lid, we're gonna just select these top edges. We're gonna grab them and drag them ever so slightly down. So now we have these little latches. We're gonna do the same thing on the underside of the lid. But the easiest way to do that is to just select everything we've just made. We're going to duplicate it, rotate it 180 degrees, move it forward, and then rotate it another 90 degrees. Or in this case, -90 degrees. We make sure this is lined up so you don't see any seam. Okay. Now we do the same thing on this side. Hit 3, Alt click, and that'll click everything. And the only thing you'll have to do is click this little face here. Duplicate it, rotate 180 degrees, rotate -90 degrees. Oh, in this case, we don't need the negative. Now, one thing I want to clarify, I don't mind having a lip here. What I do not want is a gap like this. This looks atrocious. But as long as we have it so it's connected, it'll look fine. So there you have it. That's a very simple tote. We can add it to our shelves. And stay tuned because I'm going to be updating my garage. So I'm using this as a chance to model everything in advance. So everything you'd want to see in a garage renovation will be there. We're going to turn our garage into the ultimate storage paradise. So if you guys are into that kind of stuff, stick around. I'll see you on the next one. Thank you very much.